Item number 2 is the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve. Moved by Councillor Trevor Cunningham. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gerard LeBlanc. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 3, is there any declaration of any conflict of interest in the agenda for anyone? Hearing none, we will move on. Oh, go ahead. Deputy Warden.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm going to declare conflict of interest on item 8.6, municipal alcohol, tobacco, cannabis program. I don't know what Councillor Cushing has in mind, but anything to do with anything that the provincial government deals with in the NSLC, I have to remove myself from the table.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I guess not. We'll move on to item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes of January 24th regular meeting, January 24th in camera, February 14th committee of the whole meeting, meeting minutes, and February 14th the in-camera meeting minutes. Councillor Cushion.
Yes, I'd like to excuse me. I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes for the January 24th, 2018 regular meeting minutes, the January 24th, 2018 in-camera meeting minutes, and the February the 14th, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes, and February the 14th, 2018 in-camera meeting minutes.
You so moved. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Any discussion? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Item number 5 is your warden's remarks. They're not long because the month of February is very short, so I'll try and keep my remarks short. What I have done this month so far, it's not all in here, but it is. A lot of it is, I should say. On February 7th, I was in Halifax at the Halifax Chamber of Commerce dinner as an invited guest to listen and to hear the Premier speak per the immigration and how important it is for the Nova Scotia economy and what benefits they have or we have received from the immigration. Believe it or not, they had the introduction speaker to the Premier, Stephen McNeil, was an immigrant who came over here in the last number of years and has excelled at their schooling and is now has their own business and are moving forward in their life, which is quite an accomplishment in such a short period of time. On the 8th of February, I had all-day meetings in Truro, and as we all know as councillors and as representatives on committees and so on, some days you have to put in long days. And I just wanted to give you a heads up. We've all been to meetings. We've all been to long meetings and so on. On the 8th, I started at 9 in the morning, and I finished. I walked out of the building at 5 o'clock, and I had a 15-minute dinner break. And through the whole day, it was solid meetings. There was nothing in between. If you need the washroom break, you had that, but that wasn't a very long, but that was a long day. That was a long day. And I just wanted to let you know that when you sit on some committees, you have to be obligated and be willing to put in the time, and I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong. It was a long day. It was I won't call it an enjoyable day, a lot of hard decisions, but that's what I done on the 8th. February 12th, I had a waste check meeting here in Yarmouth. Councillor LeBlanc was at that meeting. He had to leave at 3/4 of the way through because you had another meeting, if I'm not mistaken, to go to that day on the 12th. Yes. And I also had another meeting, but I couldn't make it. But at the waste check meeting, we had a heavy discussion on film plastic and so on, and you'll see that's in your agenda again here this evening. On the 13th of February, the CAOs and wardens and mayors met with Avalon per the possible go-ahead at the mine site and so on, and they just brought us up to speed on what their procedure is going to be and so on. That'll be a good thing. It's not going to be as big as what used to be there, but there's a lot of good things that they plan on moving forward with there. On the 14th, as we're well aware, we just passed the minutes of those, both the in-camera and the committee of the whole meeting. On the 15th, I had the opportunity to go to Shelburne as the reps from our municipal unit, and as we're all well aware of the doctor shortage within our own area, but within Nova Scotia, and it was basically on rural doctor shortage, and it was hosted by the town of Shelburne. They do plan on having another meeting on March 13th, and that will be again held in Shelburne, and it's to try to form the go-ahead from the meeting on the 15th of February. The representatives were there was a couple on the phone, but we had there was representatives there from as far as Lunenburg all the way up to Annapolis that were one representative and so on from each municipal unit, and there was a lot of residents from within the Shelburne area. They gave testimonials on what they're finding as for a doctor, and the one that surprised I think a lot of us was a gentleman from Ontario. He had moved from Ontario to Shelburne and so on, and his comment basically was, if I had what I had in Ontario and I had it in Shelburne, he said, I wouldn't be here telling you my testimonial. He said, while I was in Ontario, I had 2 bouts of cancer and was looked after and so on. He said, my wife and I have moved here to Shelburne. He said, and I would like to have a doctor here. He said, when we came, we had a doctor. That doctor left. He said, I'm in without a doctor now. And he said, it's a little nerve-wracking and so on. But that is across rural Nova Scotia, and I think we're all going to have to pull together for rural Nova Scotia on this issue and so on. But we'll see what happens on the 13th of March. On February 17th, I represented our municipal unit at the Nova Scotia African Heritage Gala in Digby. It was a great night. There again, too, there was representatives. I was really pleased from Shelburne and from up in the valley at this this gala, and well attended. It was a good time. A lot of good information was shared at that function and so on. On the 19th, I took part in the community health walk. It started here from Maple Grove at 1 o'clock, and we walked all the way around to Councillor Trevor Cunningham. We did walk on your new section of highway, or sidewalk, I should say. Well, yeah, we'll call it a highway. You'll call it a highway too, eh? No, we left Maple Grove, and there was a very large contingent of, it must have been 100 people or better, and even young kids, some in strollers and so on, went the whole gamut all the way around and up to the Hebron complex, to the Rotary Center, where they had light refreshments and draws for gifts and so on, and it was well attended. I want to give you this update. I was the last one through the door. I think I was the last one leaving here from Maple Grove, and I think I was the last one walking into the Rotary. Needless to say, most all the refreshments were gone by the time I got there. But anyway, that's enough on that. On the 27th, I had an early morning meeting with Director of Finance, Greg Shea, and myself with a gentleman. Very interesting meeting, and a lot of good things come forward from that. On the 27th in the afternoon, I want to take this opportunity to thank not just my councillors but to staff. The municipality has been working since about 2016 on an issue that we felt was very important to the residents of the municipality of Yarmouth, but also to Southwest Nova, that pertained to Doppler radar and how important it is, or we felt it was important to this area. We've had a lot of correspondence and so on. We've had meetings with our MP, Colin Fraser. From that, we were able to secure a meeting with ECCC, Environment and Canada Climate Control. And we had that meeting on the 27th, or the 27th, and it was well attended. We had around just about 50 people, and those representatives were from the fishing industry sector, a lot of those groups. We also had a lot of municipal participation from the valley all the way around down to the South Shore. We had 3 presenters from that organization, and the information they gave was very enlightening, I know, to myself, and talking with my fellow councillors, very enlightening. And with the councillors that I talked with, like the warden from Shelburne, didn't have, you know, it was very eye-opening to her. The warden from Lockport, it was one of the better presentations that I've been to. And our councillor isn't here this evening, Councillor Daniel Allen, when he brought up a point of why they use the other weather forecasting systems and so on. And from that information that Daniel put forward, I think we're going to go in a go-forward motion here, movement I should say, I guess, that they're willing to meet with some fishermen and with the municipality of Yarmouth to discuss how we can improve this going forward. Doppler radar, as we all learned, was basically for precipitation, snow and rain. And as Daniel pointed out, he said we kind of fish in the rain. Rain don't bother us. It's the wind, waves, and so on that are very concerning, and that's the information that we really need. So I think we crossed a big hurdle in doing that. We also in a go forward position. So I did mention to, I know some of my fellow councillors had to leave earlier, but that the municipality would take the lead. And I hope I haven't overstepped my bounds by saying that we would take a lead. We would organize getting some of these fishermen group, 2 or 3 representatives, 2 or 3 representatives from our council, along with our staff, to sit down and kind of form a plan or what we would want to request. Then get a hold of Bill Appleby, Robert Robichaud, and Sarge Deschamps to come back, or however they want to do it, and sit down and have a discussion. I think we crossed a big hurdle and so on, but I did make the commitment it probably won't be until mid-summer before we probably get all this, because of everything that's going on for all municipal units and so on. But I do want to take now the opportunity to thank my fellow councillors. It was great to see you all there. It was good to see staff there. I appreciated that. The questions that came from staff were really good. I really appreciated that. But the questions and concerns that came forward from each and every one of you, Councillor Cunningham, Councillor Cushing, Councillor LeBlanc, Trevor, you were only there for a short period of time because I knew you had to go and so on, but I do appreciate it. And from Councillor Allen, it was really good. And what impressed me the most, I'm going to be honest with you, I think in my email I told you, I watched you all, you communicated with not just yourselves, you talked with a lot of the other representatives that were there, whether they were fellow councillors from other districts, but with the different fishing groups. And when we went to sit down, I noticed you didn't sit as a group. And I really appreciate that, because anytime that I go away, I always like to sit at another table and so on with other councillors, other people, and so on, to show representation. So I really took that to note. And you guys represented the municipality very well yesterday, and I'm very pleased and so on. So, on that note, that is my report. And any questions or concerns? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item number 6 is 6.1, a second reading of the tax reduction bylaw T-083-01. You have that in your package. What is the wishes of council? I don't believe there has been any communications or anything of that nature from the public and so on. I'm sorry. Councillor, go ahead.
So I'll move that we approve the tax reduction bylaw T-083-01 and move it to...
Well, it passes at the second reading. It automatically third reading and it's passed.
And, okay, so absolutely, I move we accept it.
Okay. Okay, we have a mover. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Cushing. Was there any further discussion on the motion? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. I have it here, item 6.2, first reading, water supply upgrade lending program bylaw, W-1028-17. What is the wishes? Councillor Cushion.
Well, if there's no, I'd like to make a motion to recommend bylaw W-1028-17 to council for the second reading pending approval by the municipal solicitor.
We have a mover. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Is there any further discussion on that? Here. Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 7, business arising from the minutes. 7.1, status of plastic film. 7.1-1, a letter from Waste Check. You have that in your package, I believe, in our minutes from a committee of the whole. There had been some discussion. I'm wondering if there's any further discussion. Otherwise, we'd accept the motion that was put forward at the committee of the whole. I think you made the motion, Deputy Warden, in the committee of the whole.
Yes, I did, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to find it on my exact wording.
Yeah.
The computer's not thinking it. I'm trying to hallucinate it.
There's been a lot of discussion while you're looking that up, Councillor, or Deputy Warden, across the province and so on. And a lot of the units, a lot of municipal units have been passing motions to support their region in a ban on plastic film, but it ties in with EPR. They're only supporting it if the provincial government will also look at in implementing EPR, which is Extended Producer's Responsibility, which puts the onus back on the manufacturer of that kind of plastic to look after the afterlife of that plastic and so on. So, go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I can't remember exactly how that motion was worded, but I do remember that I think that the motion was, and I'm not making this a motion this time, that the municipality district of Yarmouth would move forward with the status of plastic film on and leave the onus back to whatever the province was doing, but I can't remember exactly how it was worded. I can't seem to pull it up.
Yeah.
I'm looking right now.
I remember it because that the municipality of the District of Yarmouth would support the provincial government, I think it was the provincial government, in whatever decision they made, whether it was to ban plastic bags or put a deposit on the plastic bag, but you wanted to put the onus back onto the provincial government. And since that time, I've thought a lot about it. It's the way that every municipal unit should have done, instead of, because you didn't want to be downloaded anymore by the provincial government. And I felt what the Minister of Environment was doing at the time was downloading it, that the municipal units had to make the decision for the environment minister to make regulations, so if there was any backlash, he could go and say it with the municipal units that made that decision or wanted that regulation, not him. But I think the Deputy Warden's position at the time was let's put the onus back on to the provincial government, and that we would support whichever decision they made.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You're absolutely correct on that, but it's sometimes computers don't cooperate, and it's still not cooperating. Therefore, I'll make a motion that the municipality district of Yarmouth accept any decision that the province of Nova Scotia makes in regards to the status of plastic film.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Been seconded by Councillor LeBlanc.
And as you also, and to add a little bit to that, Mr. Chair, and it's not to add to the motion, but the reason why I was along that lines of thinking is exactly what you put forward, is I don't want to be downloaded any more decisions, because say, for example, if that decision turns out to be not very accepted by the public, well, then the province can say, well, look, the municipality district of Yarmouth said this. Well, I don't want to be put in that position, because obviously we have enough stuff on our plate. So whatever the province of Nova Scotia decides they're going to do with the status of plastic film, then the onus is back on them. So if they decide to ban it, they can ban it.
No.
Because we only, by rights, collect it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, if they decide that they want to ban it, then I support that decision.
Yeah.
If they decide that they want to stockpile it and find another buyer, then I support that decision as well. It's not a decision, in my opinion, that should be put back on all the 51 municipal units across Nova Scotia. I think that the provincial government really should put their feet to the fire on this, because in all reality, they're the ones that are going to have to deal with the decision they make.
Your decision on that is very well put, because lots of times any one of the departments can make regulations or decisions, and they never ask the municipal units what their input is. But on this one here, so they're asking the municipal units to have input so that they can fall back onto the municipal units. They can blame the municipal units. This is what they wanted, when in reality, that it should be regulated by the provincial government, and I feel they were stepping away. But just to really, every one of the municipal units, from my understanding right now, and we'll have the decision on March 9th, because I'll be chairing that meeting in Halifax, on what the municipal units, each one of the regions, wishes to do in support. And from that decision, it'll be to set up a meeting with the minister and have further discussion on the plastic film. Well, I shouldn't call it plastic film, on plastic bags and so on in that respect. So there's been a mover and a seconder. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Item 7.2, Grant Thornton's audit proposal. You had that presentation, how long ago, Greg? 2-3 weeks ago? About 3 weeks ago? You had that. What is the wishes? Do you wish to extend? We need a motion to accept them as the auditors or whatever. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess Councillor, Deputy Warden, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that Municipality District of Yarmouth accept the grant or the audit proposal from Grant Thornton.
Okay, we've had a mover and seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Was there any further discussion on that? Everybody say. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried. Thank you. Just a second here. I gotta keep moving down. 7.3. Go ahead.
Can I borrow your hard notes? My computer is not cooperating whatsoever.
Yep. Seven 7.3, Clean Oceans Action Committee, COAC, letter to Canadian Nova Scotia Offshore Petroleum Board, CNSOPB, authorization fact sheet, March 5th agenda, and item number 3 was the COAC letter to the Minister of Environment. There's a lot of reading in there and a lot of that was we had back here in the Committee of the Whole presentation that we had. And remember, I think it was you, Councillor Cushion, wanting to know why there was only going to be 3 scheduled meetings. Now, basically what we got from the Canadian Nova Scotia Offshore Oil, that they're going to have, but in discussions with Greg today, if I remember right, it's going to be possibly, all it's going to be is a teleconferencing. There's not going to be any no meeting anywhere. And if you read into the letter, it's only a 45-minute meeting. It's very scheduled, isn't it? Like introductions, and so who you are, where you're from, then going into, they call it a roundtable discussion. Well, you're not, you're on the telephone and so on. And the COAC, the Canadian Oceans Action Committee, are very, very upset with that. And I believe I'm trying to think, that telephone conversation or teleconferencing is March 7th, but it has not been identified as a teleconferencing. And in the letter, you'll notice there's no place. It doesn't give you a place, whether it's Dartmouth, Halifax, Shelburne, there's no place. So I don't know how they're gonna, thank you. I don't know how they're gonna organize or what they're gonna do with that, but what I got from the original, I don't know what, and then I'll hand it off to you folks. The COAC, after their presentation to us, they're at the Committee of the Whole, they sent letters wanting us to sign on to their organization to be one of the signatures on the letter that they send. Now, I know what my feeling on it is, and I've spoken with Greg, our interim CAO at this time, on his thoughts on it, and he and I are on the same wavelength. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it off to the floor, and if you folks have delved into it real heavy, what your thoughts are on this topic. So I open the floor. Go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
Well, yeah, I'd like to have our CAO's
Interpretation.
opinion interpretation. I think I know what it is, but maybe it's a good place to start the conversation.
Ooh, just go ahead.
Well, I haven't been deeply involved in this file, but I have watched it a little bit from the sidelines over the last little while. I'm roughly familiar with the COAC. They are a special interest group that probably has some very important concerns in mind that we all should be concerned about in terms of environmental sensitivity and environmental sustainability with offshore activities. Having said that, though, we're by no means experts at all in any areas of offshore exploration or economic activity or fishing or drilling or anything of that nature. So I'd be a little bit nervous about getting too committed with a group that's might be a little bit extreme one way or the other on a subject that's complex and is critical in this. There are regulatory bodies in place at the federal and provincial levels that are intended to regulate activities offshore and protect the citizens' best interest in the environment. And I think it's important for groups like the COAC to exist in existence and have a voice and express concerns and make the regulators and the industry accountable. But at the same time, we're also very interested in economic development prospects for our region and for the community and for the province. One of our greatest assets that we have to work with is the ocean. So there's a lot of potential economic activities that occur on or under the ocean. We don't know what they're going to look like in the future. We're not experts about what's happening now. But generally speaking, we would be favorable to economic activity that takes place out there as long as it's done in environmentally sustainable ways, which is obviously a priority for everyone. So, you know, I'd be very careful about, again, lining up myself with a group that has very specific interests, although as important as they might be a little bit focused and not broad enough to cover all the things that we need to be considering on issues like offshore development and oil exploration and oil drilling, and you know, it could go as far as offshore large wind farms, which has been touted as a possibility for this area. So I would just be very careful before I signed up onto something without not knowing a whole lot more about the topic and being a lot more cognizant of the real science behind all of this stuff, and not knowing much about how the federal and provincial regulatory bodies operate and protect our interests.
Councillor Cushing?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I agree with our acting CAO about the special interest group. However, I am fully supportive of the fishing industry and their concerns. But in saying that, I believe when that COAC were here and made their presentation, that they were also willing to think about, they were also willing that they would be interested in working with the offshore oil to make sure that everything was going to be protected. And I had related to the point where the North Sea oil drilling and production and the fishing industry is there, and they explained to us, and the way I understood it, there was designated areas where they would not drill for oil, and this is what they were kind of leaning for at the same time. However, I do not think that we should sign on board with them, because I like to hear both sides of the story, and I like to see the cooperation between the fishing industry, which is extremely important here, and somehow that we can work with the Nova Scotia Offshore Petroleum Board, but longer than a 45-minute meeting over the telephone to see exactly hear what their side of the story is and whereabouts exactly they want to be doing some drilling. We definitely heard what the COAC had to say about it, but and again, I support the environment and I support the fishing industry, but again, we have to look at all angles here to make sure we get the whole picture. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Councillor Trevor Cunningham?
Right. Just to add to everybody's comments, I mean, my opinion on this, the Clean Ocean Action Committee was good enough to come down and give a presentation to council, which was excellent. We heard their information. My recollection is that we're going to forward those presentations off to our federal member, to just so they're aware, he's aware of the information that was presented here at council. I would agree that we're not that well equipped, nor is it our jurisdiction as a council. I don't believe to ultimately really decide this. That's a federal provincial matter, and you know, I think so long as we've you know, make folks aware at the provincial and federal levels that, you know, we've received the presentation, we're aware of some of the concerns, and just as long as we're making those levels of government aware that there may be, I'm sure that they're aware of this, but I guess for good measure we're going to send those presentations off to the feds and province. So for my part, I think we've probably gone as far as we can in terms of looking at this issue, and I agree, definitely the fishing industry is tremendously important in this area, and you know, there are other economic activities, but I mean, first and foremost, we've got to protect what we've got. So in any event, there are I guess opposing interests to an extent. Hopefully folks can come together and in the various industries and organizations and make this move things along for the interests of Nova Scotians. So that's where I'll leave it. Having said that, I too believe I agree with Councillor Cushing that maybe we should end off there.
Yep. Deputy Warden?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As Councillor Lauren Cushing had stated, I'd like to hear both sides of every story. And also during our presentation and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, in the Clean Action Ocean Committee, they're having a presenter that they were bringing over from California. They were going to have their presentations nowhere near Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. They were going to have one in Halifax, and I believe I was the one that made the point that we would like to hear, because the concerns in Halifax, they may hear, are going to be totally different, because their economy is not very fishing oriented. like that's our major industry in Nova Scotia, and we did not get a chance to hear that presentation by that person that's coming out. I do believe that we did get sent the dates and that they were possibly working on getting a presentation down this area, but at this time they thought it was doubtful. However, with that said, there's a lot of things in here that, to be quite honest, is way over my head, and I do not have the expertise to absorb all this information, because let's face it, this is a federal and provincial licensing issue rather than to the municipality. We can have our input on that, and we very well should, because we represent the people of the municipality district of Yarmouth. But to bring our point forward, I think that we should be doing it in different public hearings. And they are also absolutely right that, what's the name of the group?
COAs.
The Canadian Nova Scotia Offshore Petroleum Board should be holding a little more robust public input sessions as well. So really, I'd like to see a little bit of both, but in all reality, this is a little bit beyond our mandate as municipal councillors. So at this time, I personally would like to possibly hear from some of the our own local fishing organizations and a little bit more on this subject before I'm even half prepared to make a decision on moving forward with this. I do agree with what they're proposing, but as Councillor Cushing also said, and I stated this before, there is two sides to every story.
It is, it's directly and indirectly involves the industry here. But Greg brought up a good point, economic development. We're always looking for economic development, and that's a good point. Councillor LeBon?
Yes, I agree with everybody on their comments, but the one thing, probably laugh at this, but anyways, I can take it. The bigger problem that I see is Mr. Trump opening the eastern seaboard right up to the Gulf of Maine. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but it's that's going to be a problem also.
Yeah, the biggest part of is it Grand Banks is on Georges Banks. Excuse me, yeah, Grand Banks off the other way. Georges Banks, and the biggest percentage is in their water, I guess, their backyard. Yeah. The issue, though, I guess right now is that BP is looking at going off the Scotia Shelf, and if we look, I won't say right off of Halifax, it's up that way, and so on. But I think one of my concerns that I had with it is when Shell drilled out here just a little over a year ago, and then this kind of the Atlantic Ocean seems to be a little different. Seems to be anywhere else. When they started drilling, they lost a lot of their drill pipe or their drill casings and so on, and they really hadn't done a whole lot of drilling. So there's some issues there, and I guess one of my biggest concerns is, and they done it when Shell was here, is the blowout preventers or whatever they put on if a well goes wild, that it was going to be like a 3-week period before they could get one here. I guess my biggest concern is I would rather, as they were fighting for at that time, was to have one a lot closer to be able to be accessed. But we're also very, we have to look at both sides, and as Greg said, and Councillor Cunningham, economic development is a driver of rural development and so on. So, as you say, don't cut off your nose to spite your face, but put all the protection in place that you can possibly put in, and look at all the good viabilities, to go forward and to support whatever you can. But I wasn't in favor, and I was kind of hoping that the municipal council was in favor to sign on to any organization, because in that kind of paints you that you're in that group and you're against. And I don't think our municipality wants to be labeled that we're against anything. We're open, and that's most important. Go ahead, Councillor Cushing.
Yeah, just one more point, and I won't prolong it very long. But it was interesting how they were talking about this area here and about the moratorium that they wish to continue. And again, like I say, I'm fully supportive of the fishing industry. However, they never mentioned about off of Newfoundland on the Grand Banks, the Hibernia setup they have there, and the new Hebron one that just opened up there. I wonder how the results are with that related to their fish industry off of Newfoundland, which the Grand Banks is a huge area, you know, and up along that east coast of Newfoundland, there's big fishing all along there. So I'm just wondering how that has affected their industry. That would be interesting to know.
Good point. Good point. They haven't had any major issues there, but did it adversely affect the fishing industry? That I don't know, and so on in that respect. So anyway, that was in your package for information, and I guess at this time we'll know which way to go. Anyway, I guess that's all of 7.3.3. 7.4, letter of response from Natural Resources per the establishment of a comfort station, indoor bathroom change rooms at Port Maitland Beach. You also have the 7.1.1, which was the original letter from the municipality of the District of Yarmouth. What do you wish to comment or say on that? Councillor Cunningham.
Right. I guess our previous conversation centered around the Port Maitland Beach being a real asset, us having the international ferry here, and really visitors going there, and the facilities out there being, you know, maybe not up to the standard people would hope for in a park of that nature. So we wrote the province a letter saying, you know, are there some possibilities of upgrades, because they own the property, and the minister was kind enough to write back and say that they'd consider that, you know, some upgrades potentially during a budget process. But what I'd like to do is I'd like him to make a motion that we write a letter of reply asking them maybe to send a representative to meet with council at a committee of the whole, potentially to discuss the matter more, so that we have a better understanding of you know, the process, and we can better impress on them the need for improvement there. So I'd like to make that a motion that we write a letter of reply.
Okay, second here. Okay, it's been moved in a second. Do we have any further discussion on that? No, if I may, before I have a couple of comments, if I may, to go to question, I guess I would be asking, that's a good idea and so on. I wouldn't ask them to come down just on that. Let's have a couple other things, Councillor Cushing, you on Johns Cove. I realize that is not a provincial or anything along that nature, but our lighthouse is over there and so on. But it would be an opportune time to take them around, show them, because I kind of got the impression yesterday from the federal budget that there may be all kinds of money flowing, and whether it's in that towards those areas or not, but if there's some other areas and so on. So that would be all right. I guess you don't need to change your motion, but we would want not just here for 2 hours to discuss Port Maitland, but we could bring, well, even Ellenwood, take them out, you know, some things at Ellenwood and so on, like a combination of things, if that's the way we go. Right now I gotta, no, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, then, and I agree. So why don't we just add the motion, and so that and other items that need to be discussed. So perhaps, you know, we could look at having staff look at some additional items that they feel, and in addition, you know, perhaps you could Ward and Anthony have a conversation and put a couple additional items that they could come down and work with us on, and I think that's productive from both sides. Yeah.
Okay. Deputy Warden.
Yes, Mr. Chair. It should be noted too, when my previous council term, I was the chair of YASTA, and one of the things that was brought up then is no provincial parks in the municipality district of Yarmouth have proper washroom facilities. Whereas if you're closer to HRM, they do. I'll have to get the full information from Neil McKenzie, the general manager of YASTA, but that also information should be brought forward, and maybe we should, on top of this motion, maybe that we should also add this to our next committee of the whole agenda, just on there as an item, just to, so we don't forget about this, because Councillor Cunningham did say staff. Well, in all reality, it is up to councillors to bring some ideas
Yeah.
forward as well, so.
Yep.
And that will give me a little bit of time to think and collect some information on that, and we could actually have some facts when we can get them down here that say, look, we do not have any shower facilities in Southwest Nova. However, there are some in Cape Breton and HRM, and
Yeah.
I do believe there's one in Truro as well. But those facts would be really nice to have in front of you to make your point a lot stronger. So I am in favor of this motion going forward, by the way.
Councillor Cushion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. I wasn't going to say too much about the original motion, but from your comments about going to Ellenwood, and then what really struck a nerve with me when Councillor Deputy Warden John Cunningham mentioned about the closer you get to HRM and you go up towards Cape Breton, a lot of provincial parks they have their changing facilities much more modern than we do, and I understand there's some showers in them too. So therefore, when it comes down to Southwest Nova Scotia, I want to be on the bandwagon saying, don't forget us, because we're always seem to be left out. So definitely we should get them down here and let's push it. And I think we get more information out of Yasta and Neil to so we can identify the places that we need improvements, and where the improvements already are closer to HM, and if they are in Cape Breton, by darn, we should have the same things here in Southwest Nova Scotia.
I like those comments. The other comment, I guess I should ask first, is the seconder all right with adding, but okay, fine, thank you. My other comment is okay, that's to discuss our area, but in order to do a little bit of background research, we should go to the south and to the north and just ask some of our other municipal units, and I'm going to say Barrington and Shelburne, what do they find with at their provincial parks? Let me say, you know, if Barrington says yes, there's fantastic change rooms, there's 5. Shelburne says yes, there's 5. And you go Digby and Annapolis, yes. Then you look at us, then you have some good ammunition that you can you know, have discussion with the representative and so on, and go from there. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, there's just something that I would like to know. I don't know if any of you councillors know, but there's have you ever heard of Reesers Beach? Somewhere's around Liverpool.
Yeah, down that area. Yeah,
Risers
yeah.
Beach. That is supposed to be a provincial park, and it's right on the beach.
Yeah.
And it's a campground.
Oh.
Is
Oh.
that a provincial park?
That I don't know. I'm going to say yeah. I was there many years ago.
It's a provincial, from what I've heard, it's a provincial camping.
Yeah, could be.
I would like to find out if that's you know,
Yeah.
and that's a nice beach.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I was there many years ago with my kids and my father-in-law and so on, and it was good. Councillor Cunningham?
I can tell you that is, those are the facts, and I was there I think a couple of years ago with my family, young family, and shower facilities are outstanding. Yeah, they've got so that's very much what I would like to see at Port Maitland. So it's a fairly substantial building with not individual, you know, you'd go in, there's a large change room with all of the restroom facilities and showers and you know, lockers and all those types of things. So it's first class. So we should be we should have something similar at Port Maitland, in my mind. That's my opinion. So, yeah.
Okay. No further discussion. Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Whew. Slow down here. New business. 8.1, the January Development Report. I think Deputy Warden. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to defer to the decision on this on this report until our next regularly scheduled council meeting.
Okay, thank you. 8.2, low income exemption policy. I'm going to have to defer. I don't have anything on that. Was that just?
What we would normally do this time of year is just to make an adjustment to the threshold for exemption by the CPI change
Okay.
in 2017.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do. Okay.
So
So we need a motion then.
what we would hope to do is get a motion to approve an increase in the threshold by Nova Scotia
Okay,
CPI for 2017, which is 1.1%.
1.1. Councillor Cunningham?
Right, I'll make the motion to increase the threshold for the low-income exemption policy by the Nova Scotia Consumer Price Index increase.
Okay, would you add to that policy number L-068-09?
I will
Policy
indeed,
number.
yes.
Okay, thank you. That's for staffs. Okay, we have a mover. Do we need to have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Cushion. Any discussion? Question being called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried. Thank you very much. This is the one that I really like, and I hope councillors really jump on this one and do some sponsorship here. Information from UNSM. Sponsorship of the FCM Conference 2018. You have in your package a sponsorship guide. So I just wanted to know if you guys wanted to be platinum or not. Excuse me, I shouldn't. I apologize. Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
I think everybody wants to be platinum, but we don't probably want to probably don't want to have the $50,000 expenditure. So probably platinum's probably not where we're going to end up on this.
$50,000 would be a platinum sponsor for FCM.
I did look over this, and you know, it is a pretty big event which we will attend. I'm supportive of the FCM.
Yeah.
I'm not. I guess it's there's considerable pieces. There are other things we could do but I really think maybe we should forward this to committee of the whole to have a more of a conversation about it. We'll receive the document and think a little bit about if we do want to support with sponsorship, what we kind of get out of that. I mean, it would be nice to promote Yarmouth and Yarmouth municipality at the event, but there's obviously a cost there. So I guess it's having a little bit more fulsome conversation among ourselves about if we want to do it at all, and then what amount. So I'm sensing that we wouldn't want to spend a lot of taxpayers' money on this, but there may be some merit in promoting municipality of Yarmouth at the event. And again, the event's taking place in Halifax, so we are quite a ways away. So, but hey, some folks may choose to extend their weekend and come down. So I think we should have a little think about that a little bit and see what value there is in it. Maybe we could even forward this on to YASTA for maybe their comment back to us. So we can get a little better handle and make a wise decision.
Deputy Warden?
I have to totally agree with Councillor Cunningham, because just the mayor's welcome reception sponsorship matrix alone, and I'll spit these numbers out. A platinum sponsorship for that event alone is $20,000. Gold is $15,000 to $20,000. Silver is $10,000 to $15,000. Bronze is $5,000 to $10,000. Friends of FCM is $3,000 to $5,000. That's quite a large expenditure what they're asking for, and I do believe that we should defer this to committee of the whole for further discussion. And maybe there's an event in there that we would possibly like to sponsor, but there's not only this mayor's welcome reception, there's also a lot of others. So I do agree with Councillor Cunningham on that.
My one comment, if I may, is I've been away to a couple of FCM and so on, and my word of advice would be, in the future, when we know a year in advance that it's going to be coming to Nova Scotia, would be at that year before it comes to Nova Scotia, would be to do some type of a sponsorship where you could come up with a lot of good advertising, a lot of promotion for within Yarmouth County or within the Yasta area and so on, and you might even find that you could have a draw or something of that nature for a 3-night stay or something of this nature for somebody to stay over. But I will agree with Councillor Cunningham that maybe it should be forwarded off to Yasta, let them peruse it, because then that is a collaboration between the town, Argyle, and ourselves, and they might even be able to tag in with Claire, might be interested in going in on doing a package or something of this nature to promote, you know, both the francophone and you know, because we do have Argyle, and do even like you say, you know, a $3,000 one or something of this nature, but then it would come out of that, which we'd all jointly share, and so on. So thank you very much for those recommendations. That's what we will do on that. Okay, the next order of business is up there is grant requests, and you have that in your package, and it goes 8.4 grant request goes from 8.4.1 down to 8.4.7, but the very first one, and I have to refer to Greg, the Yarmouth Lions Club, their conference that they're having is April 17th and 19th. Will the municipality have set their grant by then, and our budget won't be set by then? So I know this is probably putting you on the spot. I don't know where my fellow councilors, I just want to make you aware of that and so on. And I don't know where our contingency money from 2017 is at and so on. If you can't...
If I can, you have, I think the contingency funds are pretty much wound up for this year, but you have pre-approved grants in the past for the future fiscal budget year. That wouldn't be completely out of line. You could approve it now, and then we could just, you know, set that aside and earmark it for grants and budget deliberations which are to come for 18 and 19, and we know that money's already earmarked for that.
Okay, so I guess what I'll make this comment and then we go from there. I see there's a couple of councillors wish to speak to it. Is we could approve all the others to go to budget and move that one to your committee of the whole for discussion, or you can discuss it here this evening and possibly make a decision. But you have to remember, whatever commitment you make here comes off your 18, 19 grants. So on, okay? And so on, if that's the way you wish to go. I'll open the mic to Councillor Cunningham.
Well, I'll say, whereas this is a pretty significant event, they're talking about 350 to 400 people coming to the area, and it's fairly near term. And the Lions, excellent organization, so definitely the value is there in it for us and the taxpayer and for Yarmouth and municipality of Yarmouth. So I'll move that we pre-approve $1,000 for this event, Lions Club event, and that from the 18-19 grants budget.
You have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Seconded. Moved by Councillor Trevor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Open for discussion. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And I agree with Councillor Trevor Cunningham 100%. The Lions Club has been an organization that's helped out our community for many years, as with other volunteer organizations within our town, in our municipality also, sort of thing. So I think it's very important that we show them the support, because, you know, they are located in town, yes they are, but I guarantee you that they help a lot of people outside of town, and they were one of the main clubs that provided an area for the Kay Nickerson Adult Center to set up in their basement there for a number of years to create some employment for the special needs sort of thing, right? So I definitely would support as Councillor Cunningham had mentioned.
So, okay, just a second. I was on something else here. I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder discussion. No further discussion? Question? Question being called? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. You want that recorded, I take it, Deputy Warden? Okay. Please record that. Okay. Okay, I gotta go to here. Second, please. Okay, from 8.4.2 to 8.4.7. What is your wishes? I see we have some of those organizations coming in to make presentations to us on in April and in March and so on. So your wishes are to move those to budget? Yes. Okay, it's been moved by Councillor LeBlanc. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Deputy Warden John Cunningham. Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. 8.5. Request for AMA Spring Conference sponsorship. You have that in your package, and that I may have made a mistake here, councillors. That isn't. I had. Oh, okay. That's not until June 13th and 15th. So that could go into your budget deliberations also. So can I have a motion to do that, please? Okay. Been moved by Deputy Warden Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Cushion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. 8.6. Please note that the Deputy Warden John Cunningham left his council seat or removed himself from this discussion. Municipal Alcohol, Tobacco, and Cannabis Program. Councillor Cushing, you have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And I'm sorry to see Councillor John Cunningham had to leave because of the conflict, but I'm sure he would have some input on this subject. As you recall, Larry Phillips and Councillor Guy Surratt from the Municipality of Argyle made their presentation here concerning the Municipal Alcohol and Tobacco Cannabis Program and how we tied the cannabis into the program that they were working on with the alcohol and tobacco. So which was, I felt was a very positive thing. From that presentation that Larry and Councillor Surratt made on that day, it was very informative, I thought, and they made a good point. From that point on, Larry Phillips had scheduled a meeting with the Town of Yarmouth Council, and Councillor Guy Surratt was unable to go, so I went in his place. And after our presentation, of course, we had some questions asked of us, and at the end of the meeting, the Town of Yarmouth had suggested that they would be willing to go along with the municipality of Yarmouth in developing some bylaws and policies once the provincial government and the federal government have decided what time they're going to be legalizing the cannabis issue, and also when they came out with some guidelines for us to follow. So in saying that, it's not that we have. Well, let me move on to the municipality of Argyle. Again, I went with Larry Phillips to the municipality of Argyle, where we made the same type of presentation. And again, the municipality of Argyle were very encouraged that we were stepping ahead in the right direction, you know, to laying some groundwork. So when this all does become legalized, that, you know, the basic agreement was that the municipality of Yarmouth and the Town of Yarmouth and the municipality of Argyle, once the legalization of cannabis has come into play, that we are all on the same page with our policies and bylaws. So I thought that was very encouraging, and I certainly must congratulate Larry Phillips. He did a heck of a good job drawing this up. Councillor LeBlanc and I sat on that committee, and we voiced some pretty challenging work for Larry, and to follow up with, to come back with some recommendations to us, and he did an excellent job on that report. So in saying that, we had a number of discussions also on how we should proceed from our municipal alcohol and tobacco cannabis program. Where should we go next? And it was discussed, should we just recommend that it goes to bylaws for their review and start getting ourselves prepared, so when it does come, legalization does come, that we can move in a direction that will be comfortable with us to adapt. It was excuse me, there was some discussion that came back to us that we don't know what we're going to do because we don't know what the provincial and the federal government is going to do. Yes, that is a valid point. However, if we wait till the federal government and the provincial government make it legally to smoke cannabis, then if we start then, we've been over probably, Councillor LeBlanc, what, a year developing this program, I believe, for this, yeah, more than that, but for the cannabis part. So why should we want to wait another year or two after they decide to come up with something? So I think we're up on running on the track. So I think we're in good position. So it was also brought up that maybe this should be brought up to the PAC meeting, and I had some concerns about that, why we want to go that route. But after some discussion with Councillor LeBlanc and myself and Larry Phillips, we came up to the point where, well, okay, if it goes to the Planning Advisory Committee, you know, it's a good thing to do for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's public participation in the PAC, where we may be able to get some more suggestions from them. However, if we go through the Planning Advisory Committee, that way, if somebody wants to set up a grow-up just down the road here somewhere, you know, we'll have something on our PAC guidelines there that prevents that from happening, or they have to do this in order to get approval of it. So what my recommendation is going to be tonight is that I would like to recommend that the municipal alcohol, tobacco, cannabis program be forwarded to the Planning Advisory Committee for their review and their discussion. And after that, we can move on. So that's my recommendation. I don't know if we need a motion on that or just recommending that it goes to the PAC. Look like some guidelines, some guidance on that.
Probably a recommendation is all we need, but you could request a motion then after discussion, if that's the feeling of council. With a motion, then it's a written statement going to them. That's what you prefer.
Okay, well, I'd like to make a motion that we
Recommend
put this
recommend
to
this
the PAC.
to the PAC committee.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the motion's been made by Councillor Cushion, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Was there any further discussion on that motion? Go ahead, Councillor.
I'm in agreement with the motion. I'd just like to add that I think that we should, while our PAC is going to, we should stay in close communication with our PAC while they're developing that, because we may want some input along the way. It's a pretty complex issue that they're equipped to handle, but ultimately I think we'll want to really have a lot of conversation among ourselves and with the town about shaping these policies. This is different than most things we deal with, because we've already got a good base of you know,
Mm-hmm.
bylaws and policies in place for most other issues. This is a new one. So anyway, I'm supportive of the motion.
Yeah, okay. If I may, Once it's introduced to the PAC, we will be inviting Larry Phillips along to explain again, to make a presentation to the PAC, and so give them some real quick background and some information in the booklets that they pass out anyway, so for the PAC committee to review, to digest, come back, and the way we go. So it's a process it's going to take some time, but I think it's going to work for us. So I think we're ahead of the game. Thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc?
Just a concern, just a question. Is the deputy warden the
Yes.
chair of
Yes.
PAC?
Yes.
So does he have to excuse himself for that?
He would probably want to. He would
Okay.
I don't know who I don't know who your vice chair is. Would you mind telling us who the vice chair is? Or do you have a vice chair? Okay. Okay, I have a couple of comments I wish to make on this. Again, Greg and I had discussion on this. Just to let you know, usually on any of the agenda items, I've always come in and always had long discussions. And we had discussions on different topics here. And I'm going to I won't relay what Greg and I basically said, but my comments are, if this goes this way, and I have no issues with that, I think that's fine, that's a good starting point and so on. PAC, under chairmanship of the Deputy Warden, has done really well in the last number of years. PAC has to look at the long-term effects. They can't look at, we're going to be building a sidewalk, it's a 2-year project, then it's done, people walk on it. Anything that PAC does can have long-term effects. A decision that you make, okay, we won't allow that to be zoned commercial. And in 2 years' time, you have a commercial entity that comes along that would fit in there and not be a disruption to the surrounding areas. But you have a bylaw and PAC, and through all of your policies, they can't go there. So you have to look very long and hard. It would be the same way with this, for PAC to look at this. Where you'd want to put restrictions, don't look at it as a, well, today thing. We don't want it there because. You have to look at the long term of what will it impact in the future and so on. The cannabis legalization, those words are very easy to say and you can write them on a wall and it doesn't affect anything. But once you start putting them in place and putting rules and so on into place, makes a big change. And I think the federal government has found that out. I think the provincial government has found that out in every one of the provinces. Now, some of the provinces have stepped up and made some decisions and so on. But they also are relying on municipal units to make some. I think it's very good, Councillor Cushion, that we bring Argyle and the town in and kind of have, I won't call it one bylaw because each municipal unit will have to have a bylaw, but they all are basically saying the same thing so that we're a unit, and so where it can be sold, who can grow, what can be done in the whole 9 yards, I think is very important, and I respect that. But just remember that, and I think the chairman realized that, but I know he'll be excusing himself from that because of the possible conflict and so on. So, anyway, Councillor Cushion.
Yes, well, thank you. I appreciate your comments and whatnot. And I think this is why we want to get on the track earlier rather than later, so we can really digest the information that we need to know and to the long-term implications that it may have. So we'll be certainly talking to getting some input, I would believe, from say our acting CAO and probably our planning department and and things like this. So I think there's a whole gamut of information that we're going to need to make sure we're going to keep going in the right direction.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Not just having those, you'd also want to possibly have your building inspector in, because a building or a facility that is selling any type of cannabis and so on, the types of security, it's not just having an alarm system, it's the type of, and if it's encroaching upon a residential areas fairly close with the bars they have on the windows, et cetera, can have an effect, an adverse effect, maybe on that resident and so on. So there's a lot more to it than just saying cannabis legalization. So, but anyway, thank you very much, and so on. So that's where it'll move forward and so on into there. Oh, did I call the motion? No, I didn't. I didn't think so. Okay, there is a motion made by Councillor Cushion and seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor of this moving forward to the PAC committee, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. Please note that Deputy Warden returned to his chair. Item number 9 are reports, committee reports. Is there any questions or concerns in those? Oh, sorry. Councillor Cushion.
I guess I probably put it on a little too early. I was going to talk about the Friends of the Light, so do we go that?
Oh, that's way down there on,
Yeah.
on number 2. Okay.
So,
Okay, Councillor, Deputy Warden, you had your light on?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's kind of funny you guys are talking about PAC. There's no report this year, this month for the Planning Advisory Committee meeting because we've not been as busy as we've been in previous years. I don't know if everyone is happy or not. We are planning, and something that was brought up by the planner, Brad Fulton, we will be having discussions on cannabis and the way to move forward. I have already stated that I have to step away from the table at that time. However, with that said, we were scheduled tomorrow to have a meeting with representatives from
Municipal Affairs.
Municipal Affairs in regards to conflict of interest. Sometimes I step away from the table and I may be a little bit premature. I'm very conscious of that, and I don't want to have the illusion of me doing something wrong. However, when we do meet with Municipal Affairs, unfortunately it's been canceled tomorrow because all councillors could not attend. When we do meet, I will certainly be bringing up that issue on the municipal alcohol project in cannabis that I've been stepping away from since I own an NSLC outlet, and also on a couple other questions that I have. And it's going to be very important that we all attend this
As a unit.
as a unit, because it's certainly going to be very educational. Even though I've been here for roughly 10 years, I still don't know it all, and however, I don't want to be presumed as having a conflict or seeing that I'm going to have a gain somehow on something that I do on council. So
Good point.
anyway,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to make that a point.
Well, appreciate that. Councillor Cushion.
just to, I appreciate your due diligence there, John, and Trevor also when it comes to anything to do with school. But I think this is an important why we should have that conflict of interest workshop, just so that we can perhaps get a little bit more clarification and whatnot. Because I definitely don't want any of us to step out of bounds unknowingly. So this would certainly help us a lot. So thank you.
Was there any other committee reports that anybody want? If not, we'll move into 9.2, which is other reports. I believe Councillor Cushion, you had Friends of the Light. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you again, Mr. Warden. Our Friends of the Light committee is they're starting to gear up for the spring and the summer season coming up, and I made a point at our last meeting that what the Friends of the Light should be doing is developing a list of activities that are needed to start up at the lighthouse, and a list of activities that need to be addressed to close down the lighthouse. Once they establish this type of list, they should present it to our Public Works so Derek can review it, and he can say, yes, we can help out with this, no, we can't help out with that. So everybody's on a clear page. Because since I've been on this committee, there seems to be a lot of phone calls, a lot of communication with Derek, with the CAO at the time, Ken Moses, and I like to try to avoid that and get a better communication. So everybody knows what everybody else is going to do. Try to make it more smoother, because I know at times perhaps Derek was overwhelmed with all the work he has to do, and all of a sudden he gets a phone call that he has to try to rush down to see what's going on because there's something that's popped up or whatever the case may be. But if we can establish this type of to-do list, and then let the municipality look at it and decide what they can do and what they can't do. And if they can't do it, well, the Friends of the Light will have to make arrangements, other arrangements to have it done. So that's what I'm hoping that will happen. Thank you.
Is there any other reports from anybody? If not, I do have a comment on 2.3, Mariner Center Management Board. I do remember it. I don't know if maybe I overlooked it, but I don't. We used to receive the minutes of their meetings and so on, and I haven't noticed, and I just thought, no, sometimes I'm too busy, I may not get a chance. Do we still receive their, and are they usually in? Okay, I apologize then to my fellow councillors. I do so much reading, I just missed it and so on, because I just wanted to be kept abreast of what was happening there, and I hadn't noticed it. Anyway, so there's no other reports from anybody? And so on? Okay. Go ahead, Deputy Ward.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I attended the Green Energy Committee meeting on your behalf, is your request. However, there were not enough members there for a quorum to make any decisions.
Really? Shame on the green energy, because they were talking, are they looking at trying to do some other projects? Are they not?
That is correct. They're planning on looking doing some solar projects. They did have a presenter there, and I do not have the notes here of the presenter's name, but they are looking to move forward with that project possibly in the future. Maybe the CA or Greg, our financial officer, could fill us in a little bit more. But that was the first meeting that I attended, so it was all a little bit new to me. But as I said, there was not enough people there for a quorum, so we couldn't make any decisions.
So how many do you? It's one from each municipal unit, isn't it? Neil chairs it.
I forget the exact makeup of that body.
All I know is it was stated that there was not enough there for a
I
quorum.
don't remember there not being a quorum. I'd have to refer back to my notes. But I can just quickly recap on the solar project. We did have a representative down from the Alternative Renewable Energy Association that has been guiding us through this solar proposition. There was 5 solar projects that were successful in the county, between Argyle, ourselves, and the town. We'll each own them individually at the end of the day if we decide to proceed with them. But in the meantime, we're working as a group, hopefully on the procurement for the hardware and the engineering and installation to try to gain some economies of scale. The projects, there's been general support, I believe, from Council and the Green Energy Committee to pursue the solar opportunities. And those projects are slated to be discussed at the next capital investment plan meeting for the 18-19 fiscal year. We'll present there the capital investment requirements and the payback schedules and those types of financial data to decide whether or not we want to proceed as a unit with the projects that have been awarded by it for us.
Okay. So they didn't set a date then, did they?
No, they didn't.
No. Okay. Okay. Nothing further on that, then we will move into item number 10, in-camera meeting recommendations, and I believe there was one, and I think the Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that the Municipality District of Yarmouth appoint Greg Shea as our interim CAO for an indefinite period of time until a new CAO is hired.
Been moved by Deputy Warden John Cunningham, been seconded by Councillor Lauren Cushion. Was there any further discussion on that motion? Councillor Cunningham?
Just like to, I'm presuming a positive vote, and just like to congratulate Greg on becoming interim CAO, and has worked really hard for the municipality and will do yeoman service in the role. So looking forward to it.
Ooh, wait there. Okay. Any further comments? Now's your only chance to pick on him, because once he comes a CAO, you can't pick on him. An interim CAO, you can't pick on him. Councillor Cushion.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to pick on him at least one more time. I think we should note that his hair has some gray in amongst it. So once he finishes interim, we'll see how much gray there actually is, or he may become like me with very little hair.
You might discourage him, Lauren. You might discourage him. You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Greg, on behalf of myself and my fellow councillors, congratulations, and I know you'll do a fine job and so on, and I will go out and get you a tie.
Sure, I won't need that to hang myself.
It'll be short. Item number 11 is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councillor Gerard. Thank you very much.